Good afternoon and welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint Podcast. We are coming at you on October 16th, 2020, smack in the middle of election season. So we got all that craziness going on, and we're still in the middle of a lot of COVID lockdown nonsense as well. Before we get into the show, let me introduce you to our panel. This in the middle is Leon, the word Brathwaite. Oh, excuse me, move to the upper and corner. That's Leon, the word Brathwaite. Last week, Liberty, and he is a retired engineer from the state of California. And we have Tim Everett, our Team Eagle Freedom. He is a pilot in the state of California. And with that, let's jump right into the topics. So it's and then my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. As far as the topics go, it's just crazy, really, 2020 as far as COVID lockdowns we've been talking about. And one of the most striking things we've seen is something almost out of a third world country. About a week ago, a plot was foiled on the kidnapping of Minnesota Governor Whitmer. Michigan Governor Whitmer, yes. And apparently it was some, militia group that I guess was sort of at the heart of this. And you may or may not know, Governor Whitmer is one of the more active in these lockdown type of strategies where essentially, she'll, fine you or throw you in jail for cutting hair or any one of a number of things. In fact, the crazy things they had there was you could go, I remember at one point, to a store like Home Depot and you could buy certain things, but other things they had you couldn't buy. Things like garden supplies and other things. So, I mean, the stuff was there and the store was open. You just literally couldn't buy it because she didn't feel that was appropriate. So, I mean, some of these, things were kind of heavy-handed. But anyways, apparently a group has gotten fed up, I guess, and they wound up trying to hatch a plot to kidnap her, and I'm not sure where it was supposed to go from there, but I guess the FBI and some state police broke it up, and those people, are sitting in jail at this point. I don't know if we know the complete motive, but I think there's a lot to do with the heavy-handed lockdown going on in Michigan. Do you guys have any thoughts you guys want to get on this one?
I mean, obviously, these guys are a bunch of crazy, militia types. They say far right in the media. They're allowed to, anything like this will always be characterized as far right. But the thing that is interesting about this story, I mean, okay, fine. These guys tried to do an awful thing. They got arrested. I hope they spent a long time in prison trying to do this. Okay, but this woman, Gretchen Whitmer, she's one crazy governor. It's unbelievable. That doesn't mean she deserves anything that these guys were contemplating for her. But that woman is crazy. She's acting like a little petty dictator from a third world nation. You just raised one example. A store is open. They have stuff, but they can't buy it because Governor Whitmer say you can't. This is just crazy stuff. But what is worst about all of this? Now the media comes up now and saying it's Trump rhetoric that is causing these kind of problems. It is Trump that is motivating these people. So in the last debate, Donald Trump made a very idiotic statement, okay? Chris Wallace had said, oh, you should be condemning these white supremacists, blah, 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 and all sorts of things. And Trump said something about, okay, stand down or stand by. It was idiotic. Donald Trump, he's famous for making idiotic statements. Now they have taken that. And now they're saying those words were the rallying cry of Donald Trump to the white supremacists. And that is why all of this came along. And that is why these people were going out to do this sort of thing. Well, if Donald Trump really wanted to harm Governor Whitmer, it was very easy. He could have told the FBI not to prosecute, not to fine and do anything to these people. He could have let them go ahead and do what they wanted to do if he was really that cynical and that nefarious in his intent. But these crazy people in the media always want to tell us it's Trump's fault. A pin could drop in the back of nowhere and stick a little child and assure it's going to be Donald Trump's fault. And this is the craziness that's going on in America today.
Yeah, I can't add to that about the Trump thing. It's disheartening, the level of this kind of thing going on in the campaigns now. But it's always been something similar. It's just that Donald Trump has a tendency to give the opposition a lot of ammunition that in the past, that a lot of more suave and debonair politicians would not.
Yeah.
But still, does he deserve it? No. Is it all extrapolated nonsense? Yes. But here we are. About the FBI, I'm not saying I have no information about this, but I do know that the FBI has in the past created lots of stings to kind of entrap people, and so I'm not saying that's what happened here. It could have been, but it's a way of them getting their numbers up, and they like to have success, and so what better way to do it than to entrap somebody in something that they concoct on their own, and get gullible people to come in. Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Well, let's do that. So, but we'll see. It's probably much more likely to have been totally brought out by these this militia group, whoever it is, bunch of wacky people, and so we'll see what happens.
Tim, you're right. The FBI, have done a lot of crazy stuff in the past, and entrapment is one of those crazy stuff they have done. Even this thing about this Russia hoax and that kind of stuff was all started by James Comey and some of his cohorts within the FBI. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that this could have been an entrapment also designed by them. But as far as we know to date, this was something that started within that group, the Wolverine Watchmen, as they are called. That was started solely within them, and they were trying to do this nonsense. I heard also that they were thinking about kidnapping the governor of Virginia. Also, they were also thinking about doing that. So it looked like they were.
Do they watch that movie?
Red Dawn.
Red Dawn. Is that where they got that idea? The Wolverine?
Maybe so.
No Wolverines.
Well, it's funny though, Tim. Earlier you mentioned the Trump thing, and I can't help but thinking every time I think Gretchen Whitmer during the her own press conference on this, I guess she was thanking the police and the FBI for their work on this, and she was also taking the time too to make sure she blamed Trump at the same time for all this. It was kind of funny though, because she was citing from the debate when Trump was asked about white supremacists, and Trump and then he asked which group, and I can't remember which group they said, it's Patriot Pride or something like that. I don't remember which group it was.
Proud Boys.
Oh, Proud Boys. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Proud Boys. And so then he said, well, he looked like he almost didn't even know who they were. And he just said, well, stand down and,
Stand down and stand by. Stand down
and stand by. And I mean, it's just, you can't help but think, Trump, for every shot he takes at the other side, he puts one in his own foot too.
Oh, he does. Oh, dang. Don't get a loaded gun around him. It might have a negligent discharge.
And what you say is so correct about Donald Trump, okay? During that very same debate, okay? They asked Joe Biden about extremist groups on the left. Joe Biden's response was Antifa is an idea. Now, if Trump hadn't made that ridiculous statement that he made in that debate, that should have been big news. Antifa is burning down parts of California right now as we speak. And he's going to say Antifa is an idea. But of course, Trump made the ridiculous statement. That becomes the news, and everybody have forgotten that Joe Biden said Antifa is nothing but an idea.
Yeah. There's something else too I wanted to bring up on this whole subject too with the Whitmer thing before we leave it, and that's it. The Supreme Court in in Michigan recently ruled that her gosh, what do they call it? Emergency Management Act is what I guess gives her the executive authority to make a lot of these edicts that she's been doing, and essentially controlling people's lives there. And I guess some of the issues they had is that Emergency Act is only supposed to be for 30 days.
Exactly. Yes.
And she's been going on for about 5 months with it, or 6 months.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
at some point, you got to wonder. I mean, our country was founded on people standing up because their freedom was being stepped on. And I'm not saying that this particular militia group was, necessarily in the right, or if they weren't crazy or anything else. But, we do come from, this whole country was founded on the idea that if a government is overbearing and taking, crushing your business, your freedoms, that at some point you stand up. So, I guess I'm not willing to completely condemn these guys right off the bat. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the story, but it's, I just can't help but think, that, this, at what point do people stand up and say, no, they're not going to take it anymore? And what's the proper role to do that?
I mean, clearly the sentiment of standing up against injustice, especially when the injustice is being done by the government. It is vitally important that we, as people who believe in liberty and believe in the exercise of those liberties in our freedoms, it is vitally important that we stand up and do something about it. But I think we have to be careful that we don't cross a line into criminal conduct in the process of doing that. And this is where we have all these problems going on. Look at right now with this George Floyd thing. Sure, it was fine for us to stand up against the injustice of the government, represented by Derek Chauvin. It was fine for us to do that. But when we see the looting and the rioting, that have crossed over into criminal conduct, and it's no longer okay for us to be engaging in that kind of activity. So these guys, why their sentiments may be fine, because they were standing up against the lockdown, standing up against the dictatorial actions of Governor Whitmer. All of that is fine. Those sentiments are fine. We support those sentiments. But we cannot support what they were thinking about doing, which is to kidnap this woman and God knows do what to her. No, we can't go there.
Well, I think one of the proper ways to protest, and as libertarians, we're worried a lot about, any kind of centralized power, but what we have to remember too, that these local governments can be just as tyrannical, and state and county and city governments can be just as tyrannical. And so it's a good thing that they're all, that we're protected in many ways by the Constitution that holds them equally accountable for their tyrannies, large and small. So I think writing our congresspeople and senators and even in the state, just sending them emails that, hey, this, and to the governor too. I mean, the governor's office has got somebody who's reading those emails and, hey, this is ridiculous and so on and so forth. Because most people liberty-minded are a little bit too busy because they're working and they don't have a lot of time to go protest. But, a peaceful, a real, I mean, not a mostly peaceful protest, but a 100% peaceful protest would also be a way to show whoever was doing it is against whatever policy of tyrannical policy that the government was imposing upon them. But again, a lot of us aren't, we'd have to do it on a Saturday or Sunday, I guess, because we're usually pretty busy.
For most of us, yes.
Yeah.
Well, for us retired guys, it could be any day of the week,
Well, you also have to worry too. I mean, are they going to permit you to protest, right? I mean,
that's right. That's right.
Pray in some of these places, and they won't even permit them to get together and pray.
Yeah.
So,
but talking about this peaceful protest and versus the violence that we are seeing that came from some of those protests. One of the biggest movements one of the greatest stand against injustice that ever occurred in the history of this country occurred in the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King. Totally nonviolent.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's
Even
your
though,
best example.
yes,
Right,
even though there was so much violence committed against them, especially
yeah.
during the summer marches, there were all kinds of beatings and all kinds of stuff that happened during those things. But they remained nonviolent, and they won in the end. We are benefiting from that today. They won in the end. So we don't have to be violent to get what we need. And I mean, I've always been against these lockdowns. I think you guys know that. I've said this on this show many times, many times. But we have to do it non-violent. Protest,
yes.
get out there, do whatever we have to non-violently, because the Constitution tells us it's peaceably assemble.
Yeah.
And that's what we should do.
Yep. Very good.
Well, that'll be the last word on that topic. Somebody who never seems to get over the last word, though, is Donald Trump. And one of the things that came up with him recently is this has been going on for a couple of weeks now, but there was a big tax dump that the New York Times did on him, where they didn't actually release his tax returns, but they released a lot of data from, I guess, his tax returns. So I'm not exactly sure of the. They're not revealing their sources, I guess. So, it's hard to know exactly what they got. But regardless, the scandal, I guess, for the left mainly is that apparently there's some years where he only paid around $750 in tax. Apparently, there's some complexity in this, so it's not quite as cut and dry in that. And that apparently he was taking advantage of some ways to defer losses that were set up in a prior administration, I think by a Democratic Congress, I think, but it related to the housing bust. But so, I mean, I think he was taking advantage of some of those things. But regardless, it's creating quite a scandal for him now as somebody who's they're labeling as sort of a tax cheat. Do you guys have any thoughts on this particular story?
I really wish people would not come up with these unnamed sources, and it's not definitive, and it's data supposedly, and but you can't find out who it came from. And so based on this data, we think he probably just paid $750, and it's a bunch of nothingness, in my opinion. That's all. Big nothing burger.
Yes, this has to be one of the most ridiculous stories of this year. First of all, I think those tax returns were illegally obtained based upon the New York Times certainly obtained them illegally. But
they would have had to have been illegal because the person wouldn't have had permission to release them. So I mean,
exactly.
At least the release would have been illegal.
But leaving that aside, every single American who files a return take advantage of something in the tax laws, okay? And unless you are telling me that Donald Trump did something illegal, and if he did, I have no problem in his prosecution, none whatsoever. Unless you are telling me that, then what is the problem? Every one of us take advantage of tax laws. My wife and I own some property. We own our own home that we live in, and we own property. And every legal law, every legal thing that there is in the law, we do it. We take advantage of it. So someday, if I ever decide to run for office, one of these idiots going to get out there and say, oh God, Leon and his wife is a bunch of tax cheats because they didn't pay more taxes than they should. Yeah. What do you think, I am an idiot?
Yeah. If the IRS was worried about Donald Trump's tax returns, they have all the information. They have the tax returns.
Of course they do.
IRS does, yeah.
And he actually claims that he's being audited, which is the reason why he says he won't release the taxes. There's various opinions upon whether or not he should release them on that. But the point is, he's claiming that that's why he won't release his taxes, because he's in the middle of an audit. So, about
the releasing of he's not obligated legally to release them. But Trump excuse for not releasing his taxes, that excuse about being audited so he can't release, is very idiotic. Okay, believe me, it is.
Yeah.
Okay?
Plus, there's the whole congressional or constitutional requirement. Since the income tax wasn't even law until 1913, then it's pretty, I think it's pretty apparent to all of us that there is no constitutional requirement for a president to divulge their tax returns. It's like that's between that person running for office or holding office and the IRS, and none of us, need to know about it for any reason. I mean, this is just. All this is just people that hate Donald Trump, and they just say, "Oh my God, he's not giving up his tax returns." It's like that's all it is. It's just that they're pissed.
Personally, I mean, I think that it's also, I mean, the voters have a role, and it's up to them to say, "Hey, we're not going to vote for you unless you show us your returns," if that's their value. But they
Yes.
without showing their returns, right? So I mean, I can certainly see voters demanding somebody meet that standard, but if the voters vote for somebody and they don't demand that standard, I mean, that's up to the voters, I guess. But
well, then again, right, but that's a decision for the voters, not for Nancy Pelosi or the New York Times or anybody else. That's for us.
But one point I think this should drive home for libertarians, and hopefully we can take advantage of this message, is that people who are upset about thinking that whether Trump paid $750 in a certain year or not, the true issue here is why the heck is the tax code so complicated that we can't be confident that everybody is paying a fair share? I mean, whatever that, if you just have a simple amount, where you say either it's a flat tax or maybe you have some kind of, maybe it's graduated, whatever the strategy is, just keep it simple and don't have all of these little bells and whistles that concentrated interests that are going to government, twisting their arm through lobbyists and getting that stuff in there.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and it makes it so complicated that then we can't have faith that our neighbors are doing their part, as far as supporting government. So
you're obviously not a certified public accountant. If you were, you would know the answer to that question.
There's one thing I want to jump onto real quick before we go on before we run out of time on the show, and that's that we have an issue right now where Biden is has this scandal. It's been ongoing with Hunter Brown being given money lots of places, and yet nobody seems to be looking into it. And recently what happened was the New York Post had a story where they came up with a laptop that was brought in for service to some center. Nobody came by to pick it up. So the guy went through the laptop, was looking to clean it, and he found all these pictures of Hunter Biden and all these emails suggesting, ties to, all these governments and setting up meetings for, to get his, dad's influence. It's but the astounding thing of the story, aside from the corruption aspect that we kind of suspected for a while, but is the issue that Twitter has blocked the story from the New York Post.
Exactly. Yes.
Story. And if anybody sends that story, Twitter blocks them. And then even other news agencies and the New York Post themselves, if they post it on Twitter, they get blocked, saying it's a
yes.
story.
The Streisand effect, Barbara Streisand. I don't know if you remember, but this is what's happening is the Streisand effect, because she had a photographer take a picture of her backyard because there was some erosion going on in the along the whole neighborhood there, and so she raised such a big stink about it that she wanted to block the release of this image, which had been downloaded like 6 or 8 times from the internet. It was on the internet, and 2 of the people that downloaded it were her attorneys that downloaded this picture of the back. So she, it's an invasion of privacy. Well, after she sued for this image, then it was downloaded. This was a long time ago. It was downloaded more than 480,000 times instead of 6 or 7. So ever since then, this kind of thing where they, a story comes out, they want to suppress it, whoever they are, and they go to extremes to try to suppress it. Well, what does that do? It blows it out of all proportion. Yes. So that's what's going on here. And so, it's backfiring on Twitter and Facebook for trying to suppress the story. Now, everybody and his mother is talking about how they try to suppress this story. So there we go. Sorry, Leon.
No, no problem. No problem.
I don't want to suppress you guys anymore on this, but we're just out of time, so it's time for a knucklehead. We'll jump back to that issue on an upcoming show because there's so much going on with media gaslighting and perspectives. But anyways, as far as that goes, to tie this all back to the beginning of the show, with the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, we try to find something that's kind of crazy that somebody said or something recent in the news. This one is quite so recent, but it ties to the whole Whitmer issue that we talked about in the beginning of the show. She given a lecture, I guess, to her constituents, I guess a public press conference for her. And she had said, while she was, tying them up with different restrictions, she said, if you're one of those people that's going to Ohio to get a haircut, I hope and pray that you're doing your part to bring not bring COVID-19 home. If you haven't resorted to that, Google how to do a haircut or to throw your hair into a ponytail and get through the next couple of weeks so we can resume these some of these things. Okay, and so it sounds kind of okay. So she's telling people to Google for a haircut. Well, in Michigan, they require a license that says you have to get 1,800 hours.
Interesting.
And then here she is telling people just go Google how to haircut, So
after she locked down all the hair salons and everything and stuff like that, she telling people they cannot now she want to have the power to tell them they cannot even go to Ohio to get the haircut. They have to do it here. They have to Google it and figure out how to do it themselves. This is the ridiculousness of arbitrary government. Just telling us what our freedoms are and what our freedoms are not. We got to stop these people. We really got to. We got to get out there and do something about these kind of mentality of these people who think we are their servants. That's what they think. We are their servants.
Well, I guess pick a law to break. Either I'm going to have a unlicensed barber cut my hair, my friend or my wife or girlfriend, or I'm going to go to a licensed barber who's under the table and doing a black market thing.
Yeah,
against the law.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Pelosi.
So I'm going to break. Take your pick. So it's absurd. Absurd. That's what it is.
We will. Well, Tim, we'll have to Pelosi your hair.
Yeah.
In honor of Nancy.
Exactly. Yeah. I have to fight with my girlfriend to cut my hair because she does a great job, but she doesn't want to do it. And it's an illegal haircut. I have to admit, she's unlicensed as a barber.
Well, it's refreshing to see that those 1,800 hours they require of training don't go to waste in Michigan when you can just Google it, apparently. But that's about the end of our show. That's about the end of our show. We're just about out of time, but thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. And by the way, too, we'll also like to interview people who have experiences with their businesses or being shut down or affected, or if you're a Cal Exeter, we'd love to hear from you, too. Send your questions to that counterpoint at libertariancounterpoint.com. And, maybe we get you on the show one of these days for an interview. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.